Okay, hello and welcome to Hunting for Silver Linings for this Friday. It's December 18, 2020. Hosted today by myself, Corey Hart. I'm with Startup Grind Grand Rapids here in the Great Lakes region of the United States. And we have our special guest. We have Sia from Startup Grind Johannesburg in South Africa. We are brought to you by Startup Grind, the world's largest startup community. We have over 600 chapters in over 125 countries, and we have the mission to educate, inspire, and connect. We're driven by three values that make friends, not contacts, help others before you help yourself, and give before you take. We're doing this series, Hunting for Silver Linings, because the pandemic has been and will continue to be the great global leveler. And as it continues to reveal enormous challenges of equity, infrastructure, policy, and economics, it's also encouraging a groundswell of innovation and collaboration across the planet that we have never seen before. This gives entrepreneurs access to a huge global network of opportunities, and Startup Grind is here at the perfect time. As entrepreneurs, to do our very, very best for our businesses, teams, and families, we need to be informed, rational, analytical, and rigorous in our thinking, and we should also learn to control our biases as they emerge in various circumstances. No one has a crystal ball, but if we keep our eyes and ears open and pay attention, we may be able to see around the bend, and that is why we do this and talk with all of our fellow chapter directors and ecosystem stakeholders and investors from around the world. So, Sia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Corey, for inviting me. It is such a great opportunity. I'm so excited and looking forward to this session, actually.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to speaking with you for some time also. Love to hear a little bit about your background, how you caught this entrepreneur bug, and then how you found Startup Grind.
Okay, cool. So I come from deep rural areas of South Africa called Mpumalanga. It is closer to the borders of Zimbabwe. No, sorry, Mozambique as well as Swaziland, which is in the SADC region of Africa, the continent. So where I come from, there's absolutely no opportunities. No economic. There are few economic activities, but they are very extremely low. There's only mining, construction opportunities that just exist out there. But then, as curious as I was, I liked computers, which computers, I think in my whole community, there were about 5 or 4 in the entire community. So I had to make friendships with those people, just to get a little bit of, opportunity to play with computers. Then up until my mom bought me one computer at the time where it actually didn't work. So I spent each and every day trying to fix it just to make it work. Then from then, after I finished high school, I went to Cape Peninsula University of Technology, which is in Cape Town, right? So coming from my background and traveling all the way to Cape Town, it was such a big deal for me because none of my people or in my background will go that far just to go to varsity, into that kind of varsity as well. So that's where I managed to do software development. That's when I started my career in software development. And when I finished, I worked for a UK-based company called Grove Group. So I worked only for 5 months. That was the only corporate experience that I had. And then I resigned and I started my business, Skywalk Innovations, which I hope we can potentially speak about that sometime later. But then, Corey, to be honest with you, when I came across Startup Grind, that was in Cape Town, probably 2013, 2014, somewhere there. I enjoyed the community there. People are so open. People, they always want to connect. And when we were starting off, I was just asking people about the challenges that we're facing as a startup. And people were always willing, just to give up their time and say, hey, look, let's go out for a coffee. And then, they'll just advise. So I really enjoyed that kind of, that kind of an engagement, because they taught us a lot in a whole lot of things. And then it showed us that, people are always willing to assist where they could potentially can, especially when they see an opportunity or value in you that you can potentially grow your business. But apart from that, in 2016, I went to China, in Shenzhen, right? When I got there, and then they introduced me to one of the Startup Grind chapters, one of the directors that runs a chapter that side. And then they managed to help me and take me around, and see the place, and showed me all the possible opportunities that I can explore from South Africa in China. Same as well as when I was in the US, because I went to New York, I went to Atlanta, as well as San Francisco, right? But then the culture just around startup grind is that wherever you go, when there's startup grind, you can always connect with people, and you're always willing to help, as this is part of our culture that, look, help others before you can help yourself, right? So I really enjoy that, and I really like that about startup grind. I said, look, I need to be involved much more with startup grind at the time, even till today.
Mm-hmm. Well, to your point, we have been so impressed as we've been checking in with the directors from around the globe, with just how deeply connected they are in their local communities, and how they really care about not just the individual entrepreneurs in their community, but also the whole success of the ecosystem and how it can plug into their region. That's really cool that you had an opportunity to actually physically visit different cities. It's something that I look forward to doing one day again.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, if you think about it, right? Sometimes an introduction to someone else, an email introduction, a simple email introduction, can change the life of a startup, right? They can potentially grow from 0 all the way to 100 just by means of an introduction. So that's the kind of a culture that we actually have at Startup Grind, and it really helps a lot of entrepreneurs. And just the other thing, just sharing our stories, right? Some other entrepreneurs, they're just thinking that, you know what, I'm facing a dark cloud, things are seemingly not working. But when you speak about the adversity and the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur, some people, they stayed in their car for 3 years. Some people, they had no food, they had to attend events, just like myself. There were times where I attended a number of startup kind events just to get dinner, and attend some other events. When you speak about that, when you share that story, it inspires some of the entrepreneurs, and then it gives hope that, hey, look, just hang in there. There's an opportunity for growth and to grow your business and scale it.
That's so true. Now, the pandemic has done us all, a lot of regions, some real devastation, some personal devastation, professional careers. That's without a doubt. However, it's also done us a favor because pre-pandemic, Startup Grind was all about local community events and maybe regional if we were lucky. And then we also had a couple global conferences. But now we have the opportunity to pop in and connect with anybody on the planet. And one of the benefits that we're seeing is the willingness of people to challenge their own biases and learn about others. Could you maybe explain a little bit about what that experience was like for you when you went to Shenzhen and then also to the US? Like, are you okay sharing maybe what that was like for you?
Yeah, sure. Look, when I was there, I met a guy called Jan, right? Jan is now is an extremely busy person and up to date. Whenever I text him on Messenger or on WhatsApp, he always responds. He might not respond immediately, but because we've got different time zones, he's always willing to assist. He's always willing to connect. As long as you are pretty much clear about what you want, right, in details, then he'll always assist. So that openness, regardless of race, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your background, right, it doesn't matter. So as long as you are an entrepreneur and you want to scale and you want to learn more, right, whether it's a recommendation of a book, he's always there just to assist, right? Even when I went to the US, people are always willing to take you around, tell you about the different culture, just in San Francisco, Atlanta, and so on and so forth. So now, as well as you mentioning that pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, right, the opportunity to collaborate and connect to people that are in different places, as much as English, is, you can always connect. Language is not a barrier, and you can work out your time zone difference. People are always willing to share. I mean, I was speaking to another event in India, and I was connecting to people in Germany, as well as Asia, as well as North America, right? So that allowed us to minimize a whole lot of time of traveling around, a whole lot of time of wasting time on traffic and stuff like that. We can just focus on engaging, getting to learn more about each other. But then the interesting factor that I found during the pandemic, out of this opportunity to engage with people in different countries, is that we mostly find similar challenges, just that you think that someone in Germany and someone in South Africa or somewhere in Africa might be experiencing a different challenge, whereas someone in the US or anywhere where the economy is much more developed than us in the developing countries, you might find different challenges. But then you only find out that, you know what, entrepreneurs, they go through the same challenge, you know, they go through the business model canvas, they go through you know, the iterations of their startup, they find pivotal opportunities and then they pivot, they struggle to raise funds, you know, up until they get an opportunity to, you know, to raise funds and potentially grow their businesses. So I would say that it is a great time to actually be alive at, because of this collaboration. And sometimes what I've noticed, especially in South Africa, is that when I would introduce Corey and say, look, this man is actually in the US, they are most likely to listen to your advice, even though we might engage and say, look, this advice might potentially be the same advice. And then you tell them about the challenges that entrepreneurs are facing that side. They'll be like, oh, okay, I just didn't know about that. So I would say that it gives an opportunity for entrepreneurs to think global, right? As you're working locally, before then, it was just difficult for you just to have a context of what is happening in other parts of the world, unless you actually travel there and get to engage with people that side. But now things are actually quite open at the moment.
Yeah, and we're continually like just inspired by the interest of people, whether it's entrepreneurs learning from others around the globe, yep, or investors now like getting excited to explore their specialty, whether it's a sector, yep, in different regions, yep, whether their pound goes further in like Central or South America or, yep, or otherwise. So let's learn a little bit about Skywalk, because you've been working on that for some time now.
Yeah, cool. This is actually my 6th year, we're running to year 7 now. So Skywalk started 2013, right? It was myself and my business partner. We were working for respective companies. I was a mobile apps developer, and then he was a back-end developer for another company, right? We said, hey, look, and at the time, cloud computing was quite a big thing in South Africa, right? So a whole lot of companies, they were looking to move to the cloud, right, and mobile technology. So we said, hey, look, I used to work, when I worked for the company, I worked for 3 days on a particular prototype for this other company in the UK. And then they charge a whole lot of money. I can't remember if it was the UK or South Africa. They charge a whole lot of money. I said, guys, looking at the effort and looking at the amount of money that you're charging. And then our focus at the time was just to say, look, we just want to democratize technology for smaller businesses. Medium-sized to large corporates, they can always have the budget to invest millions of rands or dollars to adopt technology, right? So we wanted to serve just the smaller businesses with tech, and we were going to use open source technology to actually achieve that. So we started doing that for about 2 years, and then we said, okay, cool. As we all know, smaller businesses, startups actually don't always have the budget. So we started to, explore and expand our horizon to say, look, let's look at medium size to large corporates, as well as looking at government possibly, and see if, we can actually achieve something. So in just a very interesting year, in 2015, from July all the way to December, we never had a client. So in December, I think the second year, we declared that, in fact, around this time, we said, look, we're done. We're closing down the business because we've qualified. We might as well just look for jobs. Our mission was just to try. We don't have responsibilities. We don't have kids. We don't have anything. We just want to, we can go back and look for jobs. So, but then I reached out to another guy that was looking for a mobile apps developer. I reached out to them. And then we met up with them during the period of the 20th to the 25th. And then they were quite keen and they were quite interested in working with us. We were young at the time. They said, okay, cool. We sent the proposal. They accepted the proposal. They paid 50% on the 25th, on Christmas Day. That was the turnaround time for our business, because we were already shutting down. And at home, they said, look, we're going to send you transport money just to come back home. We're going to see how we deal with the new year, because clearly this thing doesn't work. We've seen that you've tried, but then things doesn't work anymore. And then that was a turnaround time for our business. That was 2015 December. So in 2016, my mentor always stretched me out and say, look, why don't you try look for clients in the US and the UK and other parts of the world? I was like, you know, at the time, as we were talking about this thing earlier on with this pandemic, that things are open, you can speak to people in different countries. At the time, that was not feasible for us because we've never been out of the country at the time, right? So in 2016, in March, we met up with another company from Australia called VIX Verify. They wanted to expand in South Africa, meaning running most of their operations in South Africa. And then they met up with us. In fact, someone introduced me to them. And then we went to meet. And then they said, hey, look, we're going to give you a 2-month contract to see if you've got the quality standards that we're actually looking for. If you do, then we can see how we can extend the contract. 1 month later, they liked our quality. And they liked the kind of work that we do, the communication and everything about the processes that we do. They gave us a 6-month contract. From then it became almost 3 years contract, right? And then the guy that was heading business development for the Australian company moved to the US in late 2016. He became a CEO of 2 companies that side. And then we started doing work with them. That site in the US, in Atlanta specifically, and hence most of the work that you get in the US, they come through his network. And thereafter, I mean, things started moving on. We got work in the UK, we've got work in Namibia and some of the other countries in the African continent. But then Skywalk Innovations, in a nutshell, we've separated the business into 3 verticals. One, we have what we call discovery, where when we assist people with their digital transformation journey, one, we start getting, we start analyzing their internal business processes, their internal IT structure, and where they want to go as a business, and their internal skills as well. Then from then, we get the requirements and start documenting their digital transformation journey. That's the first element that we do. Same applies with startups where they want to build an app. We look at what's their minimum viable product. We design everything for them. Then from then, we look at move to the stage of building. So the second leg is the engineering, where we build a mobile app, web application, IoT solution, whatever the case might be, that needs to be built. Then the third leg is, we call it growth, where we do support and maintenance and looking at all possible ways of how we can assist a business using technology to actually scale them. So some of the successes that we've got, we have, in fact, this year alone, our team has grown about 80% since the beginning of lockdown up until now. So that's a great thing. And then last year, we were Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 alumni. So that was a big milestone for us because it gave a stamp of approval to what we're doing and the organization as a whole. If you're being recognized by Forbes, it actually means something, right? So basically, that is mostly it. It's 2 founders, myself and Tyrone, my business partner. And then we gave Marco, the guy sitting in the States, 10%, because the value that he gave into the organization, man, is over 4.5 million rands, right? And then he never asked for anything. We said, look, out of appreciation of the value that you're giving to our organization, you want to value that and offer you 10% and accepted that. And then he's still a shareholder of the business, still advises us. He's not withdrawing anything in the business, but he keeps on looking at all possible ways of how we can scale our business in the US and any other parts of the world.
That's an incredible story. That's quite a journey.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your growth through 2020.
No, thank you.
Especially because even growing with those kinds of challenges, it's unique and different, right?
Yep.
You can't grow in the same ways that you would have last year. So interested in learning a little bit about the ecosystem and the opportunities and challenges there. So we usually like to start with talking about the popular sectors. So in Johannesburg there, I saw that top ecosystem for fintech startups.
Yep.
Besides fintech, what other sectors are popular?
So yeah, like you said, fintech is a big thing, not just in South Africa or Johannesburg alone, but in the African continent, right? Mm-hmm. E-commerce is also another big thing. People now during the pandemic, actually, it has accelerated the demand of selling products online, right? And then the other one is logistics, right? Moving stuff around. So as much as e-commerce is a thing, it's still a challenge actually in South Africa to move stuff. It is still expensive. So there's still a whole lot of people that are looking at all possible ways of how can they use tech just to minimize the cost of moving items around from one province to the other or from one point to the other, right? And then prop tech, interestingly, is also one of the bigger thing at the moment. Yeah, I'll say those are the few that are actually big at the moment. Then the other ones, I mean, they just differ from one thing to the other, and people are just interested into technologies such as IoT. So people are looking at all possible ways of how can they come up with different kind of innovations that they can use things like Internet of Things, as well as robotics and stuff. But then fintech is a big thing, prop tech is a thing, logistics is a thing, e-commerce is a thing as well. So as well as just technology, whether it's a product or whether it's a service-based company. So there are a whole lot of companies that are emerging, that are service-based, technology consulting companies, as well as anyone that is trying to build any product-based technology, whether it's a booking system or whatever the case might be.
And it's Johannesburg is not a small community, so
yep.
The opportunities to grow and scale a business, it's not just regional, but you're an example of an international.
Yeah.
How is that fairly common, or are you like an exception to the rule to be so global?
No. It's actually common in the country, especially Johannesburg. Johannesburg, it looks small in the South African map, right? But it's actually big. It's really big, right? And there are a whole lot of opportunities. And I would say, in my opinion, Johannesburg is like Shenzhen, it's like San Francisco, it's like New York. I mean, I take it into that particular level because people are always hungry. People are always, running up and down, looking at all possible ways of how can they make extra income, or how can they be service providers, whatever the possible ways of how they can start businesses and potentially scale them. I look at some of the guys now, they are in the fashion, right? So some people, they're making sneakers and they are popping up shops, in fact, all over the country. So things like that. I would say that Johannesburg is one of the center where people actually get an opportunity to scale the business because the appetite for customers to buy online, the appetite for customers to try new things, new restaurants, new products, new services, people are always open compared to other parts of the country, right? So I would say that I'm not an exception. So such things actually do exist. And the collaborations of startups, not just in South Africa alone, because the opportunity to be in certain co-working spaces, to be in other incubators or accelerators, it opens up opportunity for startups to scale up into other regions and other countries within the African region as a whole. And there are other people that are trying to open up opportunities for entrepreneurs to grow into the UK. I've seen a whole lot of opportunities or thrive to help companies grow into the UK. So it is not an exception. I would say that a whole lot of companies or startups, they're actually starting to explore and enjoy that kind of flexibility.
Sure. And because things are so busy and active there, is it, can I assume that it's popular for people to move into the region, move into Johannesburg from elsewhere and say, okay, now I'm ready to go. And when they do that and they come into, and so they're maybe new to the area, what kind of support is there for entrepreneurs? You mentioned accelerators, co-working spaces, incubators. Are there government programs, public, private? Is university, is that popular? Is that a good way to get into the ecosystem?
Cool. So government is always slow, but they do have programs actually to do support, right? Government is usually slow, but they do come up with programs that can assist entrepreneurs, especially in the townships disadvantaged areas. They're always looking at all possible ways of how they can support that. But then in South Africa, there are like about 3 economic hubs, right? It's KZN in Durban, it's Cape Town, as well as in Johannesburg. Johannesburg is one of the largest. I would say Cape Town is the second largest, and KZN, right? So companies that started up in Cape Town, just like ourselves, we started in Cape Town, and then I moved to Joburg because I wanted to scale the business, and things are happening much more faster that side. People that are starting in KZN as well, they are moving to, and other parts of the country, right, moving into Johannesburg. So when they get there, right, they know that their businesses has got so much potential to actually grow. As much as there's competition, but then there's also appetite for customers to actually adopt new services and products, right? So interesting enough, guys in the ISP, internet service providers, banks, and other large corporates, they're investing so much money in universities, right, to encourage entrepreneurship. So we've seen quite amazing ideas. Some of them, they are already commercialized, but they come from university students, right? Then you also have key economic hubs within the Joburg region. So if you're not part of a network, it becomes, or part of a community, it becomes difficult for a business actually to grow, right? So there are a number of co-working spaces. There are a number of coffee shops, your Starbucks, your some of the few ones. People, they get to connect, and then they get to collaborate and, and potentially scale their businesses. So accelerators, incubators, and some of the networks of angel investors and some of the investors, they are always looking at all possible ways. And then now co-working spaces and accelerators and incubators, they're coming up with government to say, government invest the money into these co-working spaces because they have the opportunity to actually, disperse the funds fast, determine which kind of entrepreneurs that have got, or startups that have got an opportunity to scale much more faster if they get cash injections. So that kind of sort of network and community usually helps startups to grow. Whether you're coming from the township, you get support from the government, and then you can potentially tie it into the communities in the urban areas. So now with Startup Grind as well, in Gauteng alone, so we have ones that are in the urban areas, we've got ones that are in the township. So now there is collaborations, amongst those. Say, look, if you like what you actually see in the townships, there's also other Startup Grind that is actually happening in the urban areas. You can also connect with entrepreneurs that side, so they can always be educated and connected, and actually get an opportunity to expand. So there is a whole lot of community that people can plug into just to grow.
Well, that's exciting, especially for to make it not so difficult, right? So that sounds like the biggest barriers most entrepreneurs might have, like they might be their own biggest barrier.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, even now, there are a whole lot of events that are happening on a daily basis, right? Some of them, they're organized by a government, some of them Startup Grind, some of them different accelerators or incubators. There are a whole lot of events that if you just focus on attending events on a weekly basis, you can attend 7 to 10 events, 3 events in a day, and all of those different kind of events. Once you get to understand the kind of markets, the kind of events that you need as a business, you'll be in a position to actually identify the ones that are actually good for your business. Otherwise, you will spend the whole month attending just events. So that alone also helps entrepreneurs to see that, hey, look, I'm thinking beyond what I'm actually being exposed to, but now I connect to other people that have grown their businesses to a different extent.
That's awesome. That's not common to have that kind of opportunity. Sure. When I moved to San Francisco for a year and knew nobody, but it was through attending events every day, sometimes, like you said, multiple times a day. Eventually, I found those that I needed. But it's not easy to do that. Be the stranger in the room every single time. But so let's say I'm from outside in a township. I come to Johannesburg. I have a good idea. I've found some resources. I've developed some network. Is it fairly easy to find my team locally? Like, is talent fairly easy to find?
Talent is always a challenge, right? Talent is always a challenge. And sometimes you get people that they claim that they do know what they're doing until you give them an opportunity. And then, you get surprised that, oh, wow, look. Same applies with some of the entrepreneurs that we sometimes mentor, or some of them that come to us after they've been banned in the market. They said, hey, look, I found this development company. I've spent about 80,000, and up to so far, I still don't have the product, and I don't know when the product is actually going to be finished. So talent actually is a big thing. And then the salary scale, right? In South Africa, there's a big gap between startups and medium to large corporates. Mm-hmm. So those large corporates, they put in insane amount of money in salaries, right? So for me as a startup, if I can get someone to actually work for me as a startup, it becomes a challenge. Unless you get to a point where you can pay a market-related salary, right? So unless you find someone that comes from a corporate, or someone that is fairly passionate about the idea that you actually have, mm-hmm. Fairly passionate about the potential opportunities, or someone that probably is being retrenched and is looking for opportunities to actually, start something, or someone that just wants to do something, maybe is a freelancer or something of that nature, right? Or is coming fresh from varsity. So skill is always a challenge. Even ourselves, when sometimes we're looking for developers, the amount of money that they want and the amount of experience that they have, it doesn't match, right? And they got used to that because large corporates, they're always paying a whole lot of money, unnecessarily so. So skill is always a big thing. And it just depends on what kind of skill are you actually looking for, right? Cybersecurity is actually one of the very scarce skill at the moment in the country, and cybersecurity is a big thing worldwide. So I'd say it is a challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the news about our big data breach here in the U.S. Dealing with cybersecurity. Like the biggest, like people keep on saying, "Oh yeah, I can't think of one that's been any larger in recent history." And it's like, wait, it's the largest. Just let's be embarrassed. It's okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm able to network, and maybe it's going to be a little challenging sometimes to find the right talent. But when I find the talent and I have my product, it sounds like it's the kind of environment where the mindset is like people are open to try new things, is what you said.
Yep.
So I can validate my product. I can find my first customers. Now it's time for me to find some money. What's that like? Is that like what is Johannesburg really good at as far as funding these early companies, and what are the biggest challenges?
So funding is always a bigger challenge for entrepreneurs, right? There are certain things that I always advise entrepreneurs recently is that, look, the best way to find funding is to get your customers to pay for your product or service, right? It's at least the best thing. So in the country at the moment, it's not just a Joburg thing alone, right? In the country, it's always a challenge. People, the risk appetite for either angel investors or anyone is not as great as in other parts of the world, like the US, Germany, the UK and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Even myself, as ran a business that is seemingly successful and is still running, right? It's still having that background. In other parts of the world, people they were like, okay, cool, you've run this business and it's still running, so potentially we can invest some money into your new startup. In South Africa, it's always a challenge. Startup capital is actually a no-no. It's a no-go. You'll barely find any startup capital. What you will find, however, is if you start to generate revenue, then from then, if you're looking for growth capital, there almost everyone is going to be open to actually give, whether it's government, whether it's the banks, or whether it's angel investors. And the other interesting thing, though, is that even if you come up with a startup, right? I've got a product, you've got some few, a couple of thousands users into your platform. Until they see that you're generating revenue, sometimes it's still going to be difficult, right? Whereas in some other parts of the world, it's okay, you've got some little bit of traction, and then it seems like you know what you're doing, and your startup has got a potential for growth, right? You can easily get some investments out of that. So in the country, unless you're looking for growth capital, it's a challenge. Even ourselves, there was a time where we were looking for just growth capital. Even to date, it's still a bit of a challenge. We haven't received that funding. So we managed to fund ourselves by just getting our customers to actually, fund our startup. So unless you get your customers to actually fund your startup, it's going to be difficult. Unless you get some of the government to purchase some equipment that you might potentially need. Let's say you've got a product in the IoT space, then you might potentially get some of that, but it might take you about 4 to 6 months, potentially. But then with angel investors, they are willing to give up to a ticket of up to 500K. But for that, you'll have to, sweat blood and tears until you get that.
Yeah.
And then the least that you can get is 20K, probably 50K that you can get there and there. And even that is still not sufficient enough. So I would say that if someone is coming up with a new startup in Johannesburg or in other parts of the country, is get the resources that you need. If you're looking for an attorney, try to get an attorney internally. If you need a software developer, get a software developer internally. Get the most resources that you need internally because that is going to be much more better for you to actually, try to build a startup to a particular degree up until you start to generate revenue that you can showcase to investors or the bank or government and say, look, this is the traction that you got, this is the revenue that you get. Because now we're making 500K a month, we are hoping to make X amount of money in the next few months. And this is what we think that this is going to be the driver of the revenue growth. Up until you have that, it's going to be difficult to get funding in the country.
Well, it seems like, although that sounds on the face of it a very big challenge, on the other side, you're probably an ecosystem that is giving birth to better companies because they're operating like a company should, right? Like, I'm bootstrapping or not bootstrapping. I'm just paying attention to money in, money out, right? Versus elsewhere, where if I have a good idea and some users, I have revenue, but I don't have any profit. Like that's like it's only a going concern as long as people are still putting money into it, right? So I think there's
so just to add on that, I think what I've seen during lockdown, which is quite interesting enough, is that I've seen some of the investors, some of them, they are in the upside of Africa. They are quite interested in expanding their horizon and say, look, let us try to invest in South Africa. They said, hey, look, if you've got some investable or bankable businesses that you think that are worth investment. So people in some of the African region, they are willing to invest in South Africa because South Africa is similar in the African continent as a whole, and some other people potentially in other parts of the world, right? They're starting to look at either running their operations in the country by getting skill that is going to be operating here, looking at the exchange rate. If you look at the dollar to rand exchange rate, the pound or euro to rand, it's seemingly quite cheap or quite affordable this side. So other people are looking at, hey, look, how can we invest or scale some of the startups in South Africa? So that is that I think there's an opportunity for startups just to explore that kind of network.
Yeah, that's awesome. So and we usually like to discover that there are people that have had some great success as founders and business leaders reinvesting in the community. And so has that always been popular, or is it easy to get in touch with these kinds of mentors? Or is that kind of a challenge and that's very limited?
No, it's fairly easy, I would say, right? It's as much as Johannesburg or South Africa looks big, but it's a very small community. It's small in the context that you can easily get connected to someone in a second or first degree or third degree, right? It's very much more easier. If you're looking to get into a retail space, you can get someone just by 3 connections or just 2 connections out of your network. They can get you access to all of the big retail companies in South Africa, right? So access to those is fairly easy. And then you get large corporates as well, that like Allen Gray and other ones, that they're always willing to. So what they're doing is that they're bringing university students, they're bringing some of their alumni, they bring people like ourselves and people that have ran businesses successfully in the market that have grown from South Africa as well as globally. They bring them in just to volunteer to mentor some of these entrepreneurs. So you've got quite a number of, I would say that communities where mentors are willing to actually find out the startups that are actually operating in there. And then what these mentors are usually doing is we either charge a competition for startups, or we just are mentoring some of the startups that made it to a particular program, or an incubator, an accelerator program. So it's not that difficult to get access to those, as much as you can find someone that is really hungry, because you also, as a mentor yourself, you also don't want to waste relationships with your network by introducing me, whereas I'm not hungry enough, I'm not committed or dedicated well enough. So as much as you find dedicated and hungry entrepreneurs, it's always easy to get mentors and access to other networks as well.
That's really great. We had a conversation with Startup Grind director in Estonia, and they were talking about how the benefit of the small community is you could be going to the butcher and run into the founders of Skype, and like, oh, hey, having this issue, this problem, what do you think? And they'd be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Whereas that doesn't really happen in like a San Francisco or New York City, that's really cool. So it sounds like if I'm hungry, that's the biggest part, right? So if I'm hungry and I have a good idea, I'm able to convince somebody to come internally and be on my team. I pay attention to my business so that it's viable and successful. I'm able to get some growth capital and then find some really good mentors because I'm getting the attention. Now from there, is it popular for people to leave South Africa and be like, okay, you know what, I've done it. Now I'm going to go to the UK. Now I'm going to go to Australia. Do they rely on those Commonwealth connections, or do they stick at home? Is it really attractive for people to stay close?
No. So what I've seen in the recent years is that people that can potentially build networks, right? Whether through them being introduced by their mentor or anyone into a different country or different region, right? People, they usually go out there, and even ourselves, if I can fly into another country, to Swaziland, any countries that are pretty much closer, that I can be willing to spend some money just on accommodation and attend some few events that side, and booking a flight. People are quite more keen at the moment to fly into different countries just to network, scale their business and try to connect with other people that side, understand how the market is that side, because hearing it from different people is a different case when you go out there by yourself and try to understand and build relationships with people on how you can potentially partner with people locally that might help you scale your business, or even taking some of the products that side and bringing it into the South African market. So I've seen that. That's the one. Then the second thing is people usually start building relationships, especially I've seen Australia, the US, as well as the UK. There's so much drive in the UK, and the UK market has already been comfortable now in working with South African companies because there's been that much drive, and a whole lot of companies are actually now doing work purely on from the UK. So what they usually do is, myself as one of the founders, a co-founder, I might move to the US, right? Establish our name that side, try to source some work that side, and ship that work to South Africa. So I've seen a whole lot of that is actually happening a lot in the country at the moment.
That's cool. Great. So last couple questions here, because we're coming up on the end of our time. This last 10 months has obviously been a crazy journey for everybody. As the ecosystem, like mayors that we are, you have your flock of followers and people that you care about. What have there been some fun success stories from your community that you can highlight?
Yeah, look, there's a few people actually that have so e-commerce became a big thing, right? During the lockdown, because people were no longer going to shopping malls and stuff. So a number of people. So there's been an acceleration in terms of shopping online for groceries, right? There's even one startup that received 30 million rand in funding so that they can scale, because what they were doing is they are helping households to purchase stuff online, groceries, and then they deliver to the households. And then they managed to hook up some of the Uber drivers, because people are no longer taking Uber. But where are you gonna go? So there's been some of that, and people that were also selling in either in events, whether they're in fashion. Mostly the guys that are in fashion, they started using WhatsApp for business, using Facebook stores as well as Instagram stuff. Some of them, they started to adopt an e-commerce platform. So there's been that. And then the guys that are in the logistics as well, they've been busy because people are no longer picking up stuff from post office and different pickup areas. So there's been an increase in that, because when people purchase stuff, it needs to be delivered to households. So those, I think that is one of the kind of, and the other one that I've seen is guys that are doing, they're looking for either it's a plumber or anyone that is going to fix some stuff into your house. That has also been a big thing. People have been receiving some awards. Guys have been receiving some awards. They've been receiving some traction in the market. That has also been a big thing. I can't think of other ones at the moment. But then there's been a shift. Some of them, they managed to pivot, and then it actually worked out. Some of them, it actually didn't work out. But then the guys that are in the tech space, it always worked out for them, because you're always assisting people to help people adopt technology. But then the bigger thing is that large corporates that are in the tech space, they're the ones that usually get all the work because they're large, they're reliable. They've been operating for over 50 years, some of them. So those ones, they've got a whole lot of work. So some of us, smaller companies, we get to tie in with them so that we can assist them in delivering tech solutions to some of their customers. So they're the ones that I think that they've managed to score so much opportunities during the lockdown and in acceleration of the digital transformation. So even ourselves, we've managed to grow our business heavily, and we've the 80% growth in our human resource or our staff or employees came out because we've tied into one of the Fortune 100 tech companies in the country. So unless you tie into some of those large corporates, it's difficult for a startup to actually source more opportunities, because you're not reliable, you don't have the resources, you don't have the funding. Should you get either an order or should you get an opportunity, because things are much more slow. So I'll say those are the kind of dynamics, actually.
Okay. We also like to ask about the topic of equity, especially because the pandemic has just uncovered so much more truth about where things actually stand versus what people like to talk about. So like gender equity, and the ability to move up in the social hierarchy is what's the experience like? What's the outlook as we look into 2021, 22, 23? Have we regressed on some of these movements, or are we moving forward?
When it comes to gender equity, so what I've seen on LinkedIn alone, right, I've seen quite a number of appointments of females into C-level roles, right? Whether it's a COO, whether it's a CEO, some of them. I mean, if you look at large corporates like your Microsoft, your AWS, your Google, and so on and so forth, they've managed to set up shops in the African region, right? So they've appointed some of the women that are doing exceptionally well. They appointed them into the C-level so that they can manage the South African region as well as the African region. In the startup area, we've seen people that in the retail space, especially, either people they're coming up with toilet paper, so they're coming up with cleaning services in the households. because those are the stuff that they might be familiar with, right? So I've seen a whole lot of growth, and as well as agriculture, right? So I've seen a whole lot of female entrepreneurs that are coming up into those respective industries. I would say that when it comes to entrepreneurship, there is an advocate as well as tech female entrepreneurs. We get a whole lot of, I would say, programs that are coming up just to assist tech entrepreneurs. And thanks to the likes of Google, IBM, and so on, because they're putting their resources, they're putting their tech resources as well, assistance, just to assist the female entrepreneurs to actually build their products, sometimes. So we've got that. And then in other corporates, it's still a challenge. I would say even the same applies to us. I mean, out of the 17 people, we have 4 women, right? We've got 4, and the rest of the 12 guys or 11 guys is males, right? So to find really good females that can potentially do some of the work, I would say that it's difficult purely because women, they're not given that opportunity straight from varsity to say, look, you can either manage this division, or you can explore or build your career through this journey. So I would say that going forward in the upcoming years, what I think each and every startup or each and every company, whether small, large, or even government, what we should be having, or what we should be doing, is that we should be having a career development plan for everyone, right? And say, look, everyone is going to be given an opportunity, and it's going to be the same opportunity, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless of your background, right? Here's a career development plan. So whenever you're coming into the company, you want to get into the career development plan. If you're looking for opportunities to study other online courses or whatever the case might be, just subscribe to those. You just let us know what you need. Then from then, we're going to give you an opportunity to start, managing some of the functions or roles within the organization itself. Even same applies with us. So what we've done is that we always put people in the deep end, right? Startups, they always do that. You put people in the deep end and say, look, from now on, you're gonna be the head of business analysis team as well as project management, and you're gonna manage clients' relationships. Sometimes they do mess up, right? We always, for us and other organizations as a whole, we just need to accept the fact that people will make mistakes, right? Because they don't have the background, they don't have the experience. But how are they going to get the experience unless they're given that opportunity? So I think going forward, I do foresee a balance in terms of entrepreneurship between males and females. In the corporate sector, it's usually the large organizations that usually give opportunities to the females. So we're just being optimistic.
Sure. Cool. So we just have a last couple minutes here.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about some optimistic outlook. Do you have any specific or more common advice that you've been giving to entrepreneurs, like on the regular, that you can let us know about?
Yeah, cool. So at the moment, I say, since we spoke about the challenge with raising capital, right? I always say, just start and be frugal and bootstrap as much as possible. I'm giving this advice mostly because most entrepreneurs, they say, hey, look, I want to build a product, or I've got this tech startup idea. I need to build my product and get it ready before I go into the market. And when you try to listen to what these people actually want to build, they want to build a Ferrari, and they don't have the resources to actually build a Ferrari. They can start small, right? So people, they always want to have a whole sort of development stack, the whole product ready before they go to the market. And sometimes they want to build the product before they can even validate the idea. So what I do give most of the advice recently is to say, look, forget about the tech, right? I understand that you can't build the tech yourself because you don't have the experience and the expertise, but forget about the tech. Let us look at the bare minimum ways of how you can validate your idea. Let's do a business model canvas, right? Mm-hmm. Let us look at your potential customers. Let us look at your value proposition, right? Your key partners, right? So from then, let us look at validating your potential idea or product. Get some ideas, get some validation, get some feedback from your potential customers, evolve in your business model. Then from then, up until you're ready and then you know what your customers want, then from then you can look at getting someone that is going to build a product. Don't tell the tech guys to actually build something because you think the customers actually want. So forget about the tech. Tech actually supports the business itself. If you don't have the business itself, it's going to be difficult to build the tech because people are going to be consistently building up until you run dry and you run out of cash if you do have an investment, right? So it is just that. And the fact that funding is also a scarce resource, I always say that, hey, look, try by all means that you get your customers to actually finance your product. So that's the other thing. And there's also one article that I found recently, which also happened in my experience, where we said, look, whenever you're coming up with a startup product, a tech product, you always want to give either a medium-sized or large corporate opportunity to use your product at no cost up until you think that you can use them as a reference as their first customer and say. And then this guy on the article was saying, never ever give anyone your product to use it for free, because if you're really solving a problem, then they should be paying for it. And if they're paying for it, then it means that you're actually onto something here. Then you can build it and then you can potentially scale your business. That has been the most language that I've been preaching recently.
Great. Last question. Now, because people are always asking you for advice, and you're always asking people, how can I help you? Because that's just the nature of who you are.
Yeah.
We always like to ask the chapter directors, what can the global startup grind community of chapter directors, investors, and builders, what can we do for you, Siya? What can we do for your community?
Look, I think what can work is actually this kind of engagements, right? Where we can, I think mentorship plays a huge role when someone is actually on the other side of the world. What this has done for me is that it exposed me to say, look, I can just think beyond South Africa. I can think beyond Johannesburg. I can think beyond Africa. Maybe I can build something that can potentially, grow into other parts of the world. So I think that hosting some of the investors, hosting some of the entrepreneurs, but then we just have to be specific because we don't want to be obviously all over the place. It's just saying, hey, look, we're looking for someone in the e-commerce space, and we've got a bunch of entrepreneurs that are interested in e-commerce. What are the common things? What are the common challenges? What are the things that one could potentially look up into just to build a sustainable and scalable e-commerce business. So I'd say that is one of the things that can potentially work to actually help grow the chapter itself and grow the mindset of the engineers, because I believe that you can only grow and think beyond the level or the things that you're actually exposed to. So more exposure allows people to think out of the box, actually.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, if there's anything that we can help you with through the network that we've been developing, just please reach out. Anything that we can do for you, and then also congratulations on 2020 being a success and making it through. Good luck around the corner in 2021, and I'm really so grateful for the generosity of your time, and especially hopping around the calendar and making it happen. So, really, really grateful, and so good to meet you finally.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Corey. I know that we've had some few challenges before this event, the event actually happened, but thanks for the opportunity to actually engage. Thanks for the exposure that you're actually giving me as well, and the hunger to always, assist and connect myself and probably some of the entrepreneurs. I think going forward is going to help not just myself and other entrepreneurs that can potentially build and grow scalable businesses. So thanks for your time and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your day and holiday season, okay?
Cool. Thanks a lot. Enjoy and keep safe as well.
Yep.
Sure. Bye.